Folks, good afternoon. My name is Dustin Siggins with Proven Media Solutions. And today I'm joined by Ashley and Peter to talk about what's become a really important topic in the communications space as more communications leaders go from agencies and in-house roles to running their own consultancy. And it's how to run a consultancy beyond, you're not just a communications person anymore, you're a business owner.
Mm.
And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is your pricing model, pricing for value, making sure that you're charging enough that you can live on it, but also making sure you're charging the right amount for the target audience that you're going after. And as you'll see in the next hour, pricing isn't just about the dollars you're charging or your invoice. It's also about the system, the accounting system you have. It's the value you're providing. It's how you show that value and provide that value in the eyes of the beholder, your client, when you are presenting a proposal, throughout the processes you have, and everything that goes into the pre-sale process and even the post-sale process. So again, we're going to tackle a lot in the next hour. Bring your questions into the comments, bring your examples, and let's get moving. Peter, you had a really interesting way of describing your philosophy surrounding pricing. You put a colorful light earlier, but what is your general philosophy on pricing for business owners and consultants, especially?
My philosophy is 94 to 98% of the people listening to this talk are not charging enough. They are afraid that if they price what they're actually worth, they won't get clients. They'll lose clients. They'll lose whatever goodwill they had, and more often than not, that's BS.
Okay.
The majority of consultants, companies, small business owners, entrepreneurs that I've met who raise their prices, one of two things happens. They have clients who will immediately pay that increased fee, or they lose the clients who won't, freeing them up to go after the clients who will, and more importantly, freeing up their time and freeing up their head from the nightmare that comes with low-paying clients. I have never, without fail, the response I get back when I do take on, for whatever reason, I'm feeling guilty, I want to be a nice person, when I take on a low-paying consultant or a low-paying speaking gig, usually for me, I get an email back, well, we're going to submit this for processing. We're really relying on you. We're putting all our eggs in one. When I pitch a fee of 100 grand or more, I get usually 5 words, invoice process, thanks.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's 3 words.
Dustin.
Thanks so much.
So I just have to underscore what Peter just said. And I have a lot to say about pricing today, but that has always been my experience. And the experience of every other consultant I've worked with over the years is exactly as Peter said, the highest maintenance clients tend to be the lowest paying. And oftentimes that's because for smaller businesses, startups, nonprofits, the solopreneurs, the individuals and companies that just can't pay those premium prices, every dollar in their budget is so darn precious to them. They're holding on to every single dollar. They're watching every single dollar as they should, right? As they're small, as they're growing. But think about your own business. Think about you. You're a consultant. As Dustin said, you're running your own business or you're starting one up. Every dollar is precious in your budget, right? Especially if you're limited in what you can spend. So you're thinking critically and judiciously about where those dollars go and what you're investing in. And you're expecting so much more usually when you are investing in something because every dollar is precious. So that combination of expectations, perceived value, and just the demands that you're going to have for your spend. It's a total perspective shift when you drastically increase your prices.
Well, one thing I want to make sure we address here is perceived value versus actual value. And one of the things I've seen a lot on LinkedIn, and I've been very engaged in LinkedIn the last 18 months, 20 months. Before that related, I viewed it as a billboard. So I've learned a lot. And one of the things I've learned is that a lot of people in comms believe that leaders and clients, business leaders and clients, CEOs, they don't understand the value that communications brings. And that is certainly true. But I think that a lot of that is how we present ourselves, right? A lot of proposals from communications professionals. I'd had this happen recently with a consultant we considered hiring. This person knew their stuff, but it took 3 pages to get to the point
Uh-huh.
of what we wanted to get. And so I think the value question is really also about value perceived by the customer. Because if you worked for ExxonMobil, but you present yourself with a low dollar amount, you're not going to be taken seriously. You use communications jargon and you come up with a generalized plan rather than one that's customized to their pain points. You understand the principle that there's dotted line people involved in influencing those decisions. There's a whole lot involved in value, which then only once you provide the value can you really talk about price.
God,
So
that's
that's
so
the
true.
process.
That is so true, Dustin. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. We hear so many, especially in the communication sphere, so
Mhm.
many senior communicators lamenting the fact that they are not valued, that
Mhm.
they're not paid what they deserve, that they're not given, their fair share. But to me, that's a you problem. That's a problem of your own positioning, messaging, storytelling, how
Mhm.
you are putting yourself out there in the world.
You-
It's not a them problem. They will see the value when you are effectively communicating your value. It's as simple as that.
I
And
think that's
there's a whole
100%.
conversation we could have around positioning, but go ahead, Peter.
No, that's it. That's 100% right. I heard a great quote and I found it. So one of the problems that I used to have when I was first starting out, probably 25 years ago, was that I was so, and this comes from growing up. I grew up with massive imposter syndrome. I had massive undiagnosed ADHD, so I had the social acuity of a turnip. And as such, I always wanted to be liked, and I tried really hard to be liked, and I overtried to be liked way too hard. And move into adulthood, and I realized I don't play well with others, so I went on my own and started my own company. It's back in the 90s, and as I started to get calls for speaking, I looked at and even for consulting and PR and all that, I looked at every call that came in as a gift to me. Wow, how blessed am I? How lucky am I that I've somehow convinced them that I'm worthy for them to call me and hire me. I don't want to screw it up, so I'm gonna underprice myself. I'm not gonna charge what I think I'm worth. I don't know what I'm worth. I'm worth nothing. Okay, so fast forward, I got an assistant, and my assistant to this day, I've had her for almost 20 years. She gets when she books a speech for me, in addition to her salary, she gets a little cut of what I charge.
Oh, nice.
All of a sudden, she has skin in the game. Let me tell you, she does not give a damn whether or not people like her. Right. And so, what went from me, she was on a call once with me. She was listening and she heard me uh, put out a number. And she came back, and thank God, Zoom, this was a phone call because she came back, whacked me in the side of the head. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? They would pay so much. Okay. That was the last time I ever pitched myself. Right. And so I understand that a lot of people don't have that ability to to hire someone to pitch them, and that's fine. But what you can learn is this great quote that I heard. Um, I am no longer shrinking to be digestible.
Mm.
Respectfully, you can choke.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
You are worth something. The people who will pay it will see it. If the people who you are pitching don't see it,
Yep.
they're not worth it.
Well, and to your point that you said earlier, Peter, so when I first started my company, I didn't start from a head of comms role at a corporation. I was a political journalist. I had done 10 to 15,000 a year in freelance income on the PR side, all of it helping small political organizations. And I got let go right before my first child was born. And I said, all right, we got to start making some money here. And my business partner thankfully joined me and we built a lot of early business practices that helped. But it took 3.5 years. So 2021 for me to stop thinking that someone with gray hair who had owned a couple of businesses was automatically smarter than me. And oh, by
Mm.
the way, they've done a few $1 million a year in business. Yes, only 4% of businesses ever do $1 million in sales. That doesn't mean that they're great at marketing. Most companies I learned don't even invest in marketing until they have 20, 30, $40 million.
Right.
And they don't get it. They think 10,000 a month. It's a huge expenditure.
Mhm.
And so it took me a long time to overcome that side of imposter syndrome. Though I'm actually having a resurgence this year because we're growing a lot. We're hiring 2 new people we're going to announce this month. And I have Peter Shankman on my show, a show that I started in March. And I, a few weeks ago, had Stephanie Roberts she's a CCO of a $2 billion a year company. And now I'm going, I don't know, I'm a podunk little business owner. And right behind me, my real background is this. So, do I justify charging my prices? And the fact is, this year we've gotten 7 op-eds accepted by USA Today, 6 at Fox, 2 at Real Politics, and a bunch of other outlets. And our clients are happy to pay it. So clearly the value is there. I have to get over my own psychological insecurities about whether I'm qualified. And I think that's true for a lot of consultants who they're maybe proud of what they've done. They don't know where they stand in the marketplace of consultancies because they've never gone on their own before.
I want to stay on this topic for a second because it's ridiculously important, especially for consultants and people who are working on their own. Again, I'm the king of not believing that I'm worthy of anything, and
Sure.
it took probably 20 years of being on stage and getting paid for it until I finally started to realize, okay, these people have paid to go to this conference knowing they were going to hear me. Maybe I'm worth something, and I still
Right.
fight that every single day. I still don't believe that every single day, but I'll give a keynote and 10,000 people in the audience will stand up and cheer. And there's one guy in the back who's not standing up.
Well,
And that's the only person I focus on. Now, for all I know, he could be a paraplegic. He cannot stand up, right? But in my head, it's because I suck. So you start to
sure.
you start to realize that you're wasting too much energy. You only have a finite amount of energy, and you're putting too much out, trying to come up with all the reasons why you suck. And the irony is, you're the only person doing that, right? Everyone else who you think has it all together, A, doesn't, and B, you'd be amazed. You sit there, and it's a lesson that most high school kids need to learn. My daughter's 12, and I see her. She's gonna have to go through it. She goes to school in New York City, right? It's like with the exception of LA, it's the New York City is like the schools are, who are you? What do you do? Why should we hang out with you, right? And kid has tons of friends. She's more friends than I ever had in my life. But it's fun to watch that because there's a part of it. She comes home, she goes to the whole no one likes me thing. And okay,
Right.
obviously that's not true. Here's the facts behind why that's not true. Your 3 friends are waiting for you in the living room. But the premise that you have to understand for an entrepreneur or consultant, almost everyone you meet, they're not out to ruin you. They're out to better themselves.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And once you realize that, it becomes a lot easier to say, okay, I know what I'm good at. I know what my worth is. I'm going to try to do that. And that's all you have to focus on. At the end of the day, people are paying you. You're doing a good job, and no one else has it figured out either. No one. I'm 53 years old and I still don't think I have it figured out. I'm hopeful maybe next year.
Guys, can I give a little bit of a contrarian take on this
Please,
conversation?
always.
See, I knew it. She doesn't like me.
Peter, no. Okay, so as with everything in life, there's a spectrum, right, of different human experiences and where we all are on this, rainbow of, the consulting spectrum. Okay. So some people on one end of the spectrum are struggling with what we just discussed, which is imposter syndrome or lack of confidence and need that pep talk around, hey, you need to charge more, you need to know your value, you need to know your worth. There are also a number of consultants, especially at the very, very senior level, 20, 30 plus years into their careers, who have, I'm going to say it, a little bit of an overinflated
Yep.
sense of
I was
their
hoping we were going
own
to get there,
worth and
actually. Thank you.
their own worth and their own value.
Yep.
Not to say they don't bring the experience and the chops. Every one of them is a seasoned
Yep.
communications expert with 30 plus years of experience. I can't tell you how many of them I know. Okay, it's not that they don't have the experience and the chops, it's that they are not putting in the time and effort to appropriately position and market why they are uniquely talented, gifted,
Yep.
and uniquely situated to solve that high value pain point and problem for the client. I see a lot of senior consultants falling into this trap that all they have to do is, update their LinkedIn that they're now available, super seasoned consultant, and send out a message to their amazing network of, amazing senior level people. Hey, available for consulting. And then they get really, really frustrated. And I know
Yep.
some of you are on this call. I know some of you are listening in on this. They get really, really frustrated when those high value, high priced opportunities aren't rolling in, aren't dropping into their laps. So I think, you have to know thyself, right? You have to know where you are on that spectrum. Are you lacking in confidence? Do you need to push yourself to
Mhm.
value yourself more? Or Are you on the other side? Do you need to do more to prove that value that you know you bring? To prove, to demonstrate, to exhibit, to market yourself? Do you need to do more on that side? I
Well, I think that's where it's all the same process, actually, right? Because it's all about, Colleen just pointed out, you have to ask your prospects for, what their solutions they want to achieve, the goals they want to achieve. At the end of the day, whether you're lacking confidence or you're overly confident, whether you have been scrapping from the start like me, or you walked out with you just left one of the major firms and you were, SVP, you have to come at it with the same process, because value leads to price, and pricing and value in the eyes of the beholder. And so
yeah.
you have to start with first of all, you have to know what you're offering. Then make sure you're unique. Every single word in the English language has been said before.
Yeah.
But if you find somebody who hasn't heard that word, you're a genius, right? So there's a lot of thought leaders on LinkedIn who are simply repurposing business 101 and pretending they're thought leaders.
Hmm.
But when I wrote a piece for CEO Magazine on repurposing content, that's thought leadership to the CEO crowd that may not understand marketing and branding.
Yeah.
PR Daily would never publish that piece because that's common sense for all of us. And so you have to be able to find an audience that believes that what you're saying is unique, then make sure that there is a pain point you can solve, that they have the price point, the affordability,
Hmm.
and that they recognize that that's a pain point. And that all starts before you really even talk to the prospect in the first place.
So, so often a lot of this too is I think we consultants need to cast wider nets with how large our prospective pool of potential clients is, right? So many of us live in these teeny little bubbles of our existing networks, our existing connections, our existing networks, our tried and trues, our old friends. And we don't think about things the way a business would around how do we market ourselves? How do we constantly grow our awareness? How do we reach larger groups of potential clients, right? With we're so good at promoting others. We're so good at talking about others and promoting other brands. But are we doing the work to get out there in front of more eyes and ears about our own services and our own offerings? The beauty of casting a wide net with your audience is that you're going to, just by nature of it, increase the number of leads that you have the opportunity to engage with.
Uh,
And when you have more leads, you have more choice. This is how I built my business over the last 10 years as a consultant. My goal was to get as many incoming calls as I possibly could, not because I wanted to be booked 40 hours a week, but because I wanted choice over who I worked with, what I did for them, and how much I got paid. And I knew the only way I would have that choice is if I had way more opportunities coming in, way more leads than I could possibly service for myself.
So a couple of points to add to that, to Ashley's brilliant diatribe there, because she's 100% right. Um, I speak primarily now on customer experience, and well, it's twofold. I speak on customer experience, and recently over the past several years, I've been growing a speaking fold in neurodiversity in the workplace. Well,
oh, sure.
so my customer experience talks that I've given to American Express, Disney, Morgan Stanley, Adobe, name the company, Oracle, SAP, they've all come from one basic place, which is that as a consumer, as a person, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a resident of our planet, we usually expect to be treated like crap. If you think about the last flight you took, you got to the airport early, you did everything right, you had all the time that they told you to have, and you still got stopped at security, and now you only have 10 minutes to make your gate. But it's okay because you're at gate 4, which is right there. Except they moved you to gate 362 and didn't tell you. So now you're running, right? We've all been there. They gave away your seat. By the time you get there, you've had 6 mini strokes. Okay, instead of seat 4A, now you're in seat 34 bathroom between 2 large people. Okay. So, and you're laughing
Yeah, right.
because it's relatable, right?
Right,
So
of course.
one of the things that I've always found when you're dealing with any sort of client, the customer experience bar, and in this respect, they're the customer.
Right.
Customer experience bar is so low that it could be a tripping hazard in hell. Yet most companies are here limbo dancing with the devil, right? So what do I mean by that? All you have to do is be slightly better than
Yeah, everybody
what
else.
people
Right.
expect. And the
Yes.
expectation is so poor, right? I've gotten I can count on one hand. I can count on more than one hand the number of speaking gigs I've gotten simply because I was the first one to answer the phone or reply to the email.
Great.
Right?
Always.
I
Yep.
answer. Everyone's like, "Why do you answer the call? You don't know where it's coming from." Because you never know. Is it going to be
You never
spam? Most
know.
likely, but you
Yeah.
never know.
That's a great point.
Sometimes it's CNN,
Right.
right? Sometimes it's big company that happened to get my number. So, stupid things like always. I remember being one of my clients for the longest time was Huawei, the largest, one of the largest tech companies in the world. They're based in Shenzhen, China. And there's a great story you could find in Forbes about the CEO of Huawei, who is this multi-billion-dollar CEO. And someone grabbed a photo of him waiting in a taxi line outside of Shenzhen Airport. He's not waiting for his limo. He's doing what everyone else does, right?
Mm.
And he's worth billions. The simple act of answering your own calls, of responding to your own emails, things like that are very, very underrated, right? The airplane that who had a great flight? I did. What made it great? Well, we took off on time, we landed on time. Right. That's just called a flight. There was nothing
Right.
special about it, except you expected to have all this bad crap happen to you and then be dropped off at, in the middle of a mountain. So you made it to your destination on time. They did what they said they'd do. So in
Right.
terms of what Ashley was saying, know your worth and don't be overconfident. But at the same note, one millionth percent, there's no wrong way to say yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Most of us don't.
Well,
Yeah.
so and to that point, I'm a big, one of my favorite phrases, and I'm going to botch the exact quote here because it's live, of course, is you miss all the shots you don't take.
Right.
That has been my
Michael Scott.
philosophy
100%.
my entire life.
Yeah.
And it also helps that I've never experienced shyness. I know how to use it in a sentence. I know how to spell it, but I've never experienced it. But I'm going to actually strongly disagree with what both of you just said about having casting a wide net. And here's why. If you're a roofing company based in northern New Hampshire, you don't want to be marketing in New York. If you are providing earned media services, which is what we do, I've experimented. I've cast that wide net. I went into Tyson's Corner, Virginia, which is a really microcosm of the national economy with investors,
Indiana, baby.
government contracts, government contractors, and everything across the board. And I spent 400 hours and 13,000 a year for several years. And I gained about $125,000 in business. Meanwhile, we were providing earned media services to the communication space, public affairs, marketing, public relations firms. And we generated 3x the revenue for 10% the effort. So I've actually got a very narrow target audience, communications teams, and I'm going real deep. So I actually wasted a lot of time and effort on proposals that people wanted 200,000, 500,000. They didn't know they wanted that kind of number. But because they were ignorant of communications, they said, we want to get here. It burned me out. I hated sales for 3 years because I had 8 requests for 6-figure proposals and they all said no, 6 for price reasons. Even though I was told by one case and asked for a helicopter. We are a little bug trying to go up the waterfall in this big market, build us a helicopter. So we built them a helicopter and a hang glider proposals, and they said no to both. So I actually believe strongly, especially when you're in the first 3 to 5 years, won't let pride get in your way. Don't let that, I have this value, I want to provide it to everybody. Find 10 people who represent that persona, that target audience, and focus on them. That way you figure out the people most likely to hire you. What do they see for strengths? What are the weaknesses? What's your pricing that is best? What are the outcomes they want? And what are the streamlined internal processes that you need so it's not just you got there, but on the way they got the right coffee, the right soda, and the flight attendant treated them the way they wanted to be treated throughout that entire flight.
Since we're all being contrarian, can I add to that?
Yeah, go
Well, as
for
long
it.
as you don't disagree with me.
The one point I would say to all of that is that you are taking the concept of prospecting way more seriously than I do. And the reason I say that is
Okay.
because my definition of prospecting is probably very different than yours. My definition of prospecting, and this comes definitely from ADHD. If you're sitting next to me on a plane,
Yep.
unless you fake your death,
I'm going to talk to you.
I'm going to know
I'm going to
every
conversation with you.
wait. I'm going to know everything about you by the time we land. I might not say a word, but I'm going to be the best listener, that you ever met in your life. And what's going to happen is that when we get off that plane, you're going to be like, my God, what a great conversation I had. Yeah, you had a great conversation because you were the only one talking. Most people in this world, most people in the world simply wait for the other person to get quiet so they can start talking. It's just who we are as a society. If you listen to people, everyone, the guy who you get your bacon, egg, and cheese from at the bodega, the guy sitting next to you on the plane, the guy who's bitching in the airport lounge, the guy, wherever, you're going to find clients simply by listening. I don't prospect. I hate it. I hate cold calling. I literally would rather stab myself in the eye with a spork. I like talking to people and creating conversations. I run Source of Sources, which has over 50,000 sources and like 15,000, 20,000 journalists. It started about a year and a half ago. And Source of Sources the journalists love it and trust it because over the past 25 years, they've known that they can trust me if they need to find a source on something.
Yeah.
Right? My previous company, Harrow, did the same thing before I sold it. And so it's that level of trust that comes with my saying, how can I help? What are you working on? And how can I'm not trying to get paid. How can I help you?
Yeah.
5 most underutilized words in the English language. How can I help you?
That's so true. So true. And listening, I mean, that's been my whole business model too, is just, I mean, that's part of being a consultant and advisor, right? Is that trust and that ability to listen and listening strategically for those buying windows, those buying opportunities, right? Knowing what you're listening for. Like part of this talk is supposed to be about pain points, right? Knowing what those pain points are, knowing what those markers are that may indicate they're ready to buy, right? Have they just hit a new milestone with a new product or their business? Have they just entered a new role where they may need an assessment? Are they, up against something where you can provide a solution in the moment? I mean, if you're listening carefully, you can identify those moments. Dustin, were you going to ask something?
No, I'm just listening because Ashley, you know this. One of the things Ashley had to tell me, 5 months ago, is I hate phone calls, and I especially am terrified of phone calls that are unexpected. Because
Terrified. I wouldn't say terrified. I would say I've had a few bad experiences. Many of us, Dustin, many of us have had a few bad experiences with bad news that have come from random calls. So when some of us have like high anxiety thresholds for when a random call pops in unexpectedly, and then we're like, oh gosh, something bad.
I didn't realize that was the context.
Yeah, that's the reason. A lot of it.
I didn't know that. Okay. Oh. I thought it was like an introvert anxiety. My wife's an introvert who doesn't ever do phone calls. So I didn't realize that. Okay. But to that point, Peter, I really like what you said there, because one of the most painful lessons, like you said about not getting along well with others, I was challenged in my 20s where I worked from home, and I'm a very extroverted type A choleric personality. I'm friendly, but sometimes with a battering ram. And so I didn't grow up mature that way until I started my business, had my first kid, we were pregnant with our second child. And a number of folks I got to know who were senior in that Tyson's community said, Dustin, we like you. We're on Team Dustin, as one guy put it. But you've got to grow up in these ways. And right before the pandemic hit, the same 3 or 4 people said, organically, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. It was actually one of the last pieces of advice I got from these people before I never saw them again because of the pandemic. And it was so helpful, but I had to grow up. I was 32, 33. I had to grow up in this way of listening actively. Chris Voss talks about this in his book on negotiation, is listen actively, listen for the pain point, create solutions for that pain point, because once people identify with that, they understand that you've identified with them emotionally, they will buy from you. And so at the end of the day, I'm really good at starting the conversation and very bad at letting that. I've gotten better, but I'm getting better at letting other people actually dominate it and just asking questions until I can summarize what they're saying. Which brings us back to, I think, the idea of it's never, as Chris Voss puts it, it's not a sin to lose a negotiation, it's a sin to waste time. So let's talk a little bit about when you have a prospect, how do you show value as a consultant by saying no? Right? And I think part of that is if someone comes to you with a low budget, they come to you with the wrong solution. Last year, we had a prospect come to us through a referral, and they said, we want to do this thing at a major annual conference. And we said, well, that's actually who we had to ask. It sounded like the PR sounded like the right answer until we said, what's your target audience? And they said, oh, it's this audience that's barely engaged with us and actually may not agree with our fundamental values that we're proposing. And we said, well, then that event is not the right one. It's too politically controversial. PR is not your right solution. And that actually increased the value that we brought to them. 2 months later, they came back with another proposal, and we did a 4.5 month campaign with them.
I mean, just what comes to mind there is the times in which I've said no in the way that you're describing have only deepened the trust that I've had with my clients in long-term contacts, because there are so many consultants out there and boutique agencies that will say yes to absolutely anything and are completely indiscriminate in what they'll do, and they do not necessarily care about, and they care about what the money they're making. They do not care about the client's results and outcomes. They will say yes to anything. So I think just by being willing to say no or give, a different take on the approach or push back, you're underscoring your value. You're also subtly indicating that you're not desperate. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into the desperation thing.
Yes.
Desperation is the world's stinkiest cologne. That's one of my favorite quotes. And my God, people can smell it on you. And when you will just when you will jump at anything, and this pertains to pricing negotiations too, when you will just jump at anything and say yes to anything, people can smell that. It's very similar to dating, y'all. I mean, if anyone's out there in the market, do we want the person who will say yes to anybody, who will go out with anybody that they well, just, throw, this is where you don't throw the net wide, right? Where you just say yes to,
Right.
but
Being available though.
available but selective.
Being available but selective, right? I'm all across LinkedIn. I'm widely available. I'll take a Zoom call with practically anybody. And yet I will say no to a lot of people if they're the wrong client.
Yeah.
So available but selective. I like that phrase you come up with, Ashley.
I think that also one of the key things is the understanding that if you take a client that from the get-go, you're underpricing, you're going to hate them.
Yes.
You're going to, every interaction you have with them is going to be just so
painful,
miserable,
resenting it.
And you're going to wind up firing them, or they're going to wind up firing you. And it's just not worth it. I had a mentor once who said, peace of mind, or no, peace of mind is more valuable than an extra $1,000 a month or something like that. And this is like probably 20 years ago, so probably 5,000 now. But the premise that you ever fired a client? My God, that must be what heroin is like. No, I wouldn't know, but it's just the greatest feeling in the world. Like when you realize that your time and your peace of mind and your emotional well-being is just worth more than dealing with these idiots, and you just say, "Hey, we're done."
To have that, it's that choice I mentioned earlier. It's the choice, right? It's choice about, I mean, if you're charging the right prices and you're cultivating the right client portfolio and you're doing the right kind of positioning, you should, it takes time, but over the course of time, be able to build your consultancy to where you don't have to work unless you want to work. You work with the people that you actually like and that you're doing satisfying work for. You're charging what you're actually worth, and you're saying no or firing clients regularly because you have choice. You're not beholden. These are, you don't have to say yes every time the phone rings. Maybe you answer the phone, Peter, but you don't say yes every time someone calls.
100%.
You are in control of your own business. And the only way that you cultivate that is by doing your business development, your pipeline growth, your positioning, your marketing in the right way, and thinking about your business as a business. You're not just here to help out. You are a business owner.
You're a business owner, and you're not just a communications person anymore.
Right.
Michael asked the question in the comments comments, what would you say is the role of authenticity with inbound lead development? I think what he's asking, I've asked him for a more precise definition of authenticity here, but I think you have to be authentic with what you're offering first and foremost, and that authenticity, I think, has to come from a sense of your uniqueness in the marketplace. We're an earned media firm. Oh, by the way, we also do media training if necessary, and we do have a digital marketing offering, and we also do have, we also talk strategy with our clients, and we work with their marketing team. but our authentic value that we're providing is very, very narrow.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not trying to provide everything for everybody,
oh yeah.
because that goes back to that inch wide, mile deep thing I mentioned earlier. It's so easy to cut up and think, oh, I can do this thing and that thing. What you don't learn by doing that is who's going to pay the most and where's the highest value that you can offer the marketplace of ideas. Where you can be, to your point earlier, Peter, the one-eyed man on the island of the blind, or woman on the island of the blind, is when everyone else is doing this, can you be different? You can't learn that in an authentic way and then be authentic about the value you're providing unless you figure out very quickly where you can stand out in the marketplace of ideas.
Okay, that is, you spoke a mouthful there. And let me just
Sorry.
underscore what, no, that is, I mean, spot on, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Let me just underscore that by saying, you know, when I said cast a wide net earlier, I'm talking about the number of people in your network within your reach that you are speaking to. I actually think, so what most consultants do is they do the exact opposite of what I think they should do. They cast a wide net when it comes to their services. So consultants oftentimes
Oh,
fall prey to, hey, I have this incredibly wide spectrum of services. I can do this, I can do that. You know, especially if you've been in the industry for 25 years, maybe you came from a CCO level position. You have seen it all, you've done it all. So you come to market saying, hey, I can be your corp comms person, I can be your thought leadership person. You may do public affairs, great. Internal comms, crisis comms, reputation management, I can do all of it.
yeah.
And then conversely, with their reach, with their potential audience, they cast a very narrow net. They say, hey, I'm going to do all the services under this massive umbrella, and I'm going to stick with my little teeny tried and true network of people that I know. When I always advise people, it should be the exact opposite. You should go
Yeah.
extremely narrow with your services. Become known as one of the few on
Mhm.
planet Earth that can do
Yeah.
this thing with this
Yeah.
level of excellence and results.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, cast a wide net when it comes to the number of people who are
Yes.
seeing that narrow messaging on
Mhm.
a daily, weekly basis. Because then you're
Mhm.
casting a wide net with all these different people that could hire you, refer you out,
Yes.
promote your content, attend your webinars. But
Yep.
the narrowing of your niche, huge, huge opportunity, and so few are courageous enough to do this.
You have to give up other revenue. Peter, you talked about this earlier. Give up the low level revenue to get the higher level that's more satisfactory and allows you to be happier and more profitable.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, I was listening when you said that you live in Tyson's Corner. So my first and only real job was 8615 Westwood Center Drive, back in the 90s. I was one of three founders of the newsroom at AOL, back when AOL was the internet. Um, and you know, I remember thinking that, okay, I'm gonna work at AOL for the rest of my life, and this is gonna be 40 years from now, I'll retire and whatever, you know, and see how that worked. And then when I went on my own and moved back to New York, um, New York City, it pretty much costs $1,000 a day to wake up here. It's a ridiculous place, right? And I have friends who live in Bangkok, and who do the same job I do, and they corporate speakers and the whole thing, and they live all over the world. And the ones in Bangkok are paying, you know, about 1/80th of what I pay for everything, right? And but the interesting thing about that is that I find that they are more willing to accept uh, lower paying gigs. And, you know, because they don't have that sort of New York City wolf beating down their door that says, hey, you have a mortgage due in 30 days. And by the way, 30 days after that, it's due again, you know, and a New York City mortgage. So what's interesting is that you mentioned finding the higher paying clients that give you sort of that ability to enjoy life and to breathe more. And it's also peace of mind. Um,
Right.
and you'll find this niche wherever you wind up, you'll be in a niche that allows you to be in a place where you can breathe and you can breathe nicely. And I want to, I'm looking at how long we've been talking just about the concept of pricing. And Ashley, you mentioned on the pre-call, you said, you know,
You
hey,
did predict
talk
this.
about pricing and nothing else. I want to pivot a little bit. I want to talk about running a company, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're a consultancy with 20 people and you're the head of it. We don't talk enough about self-care.
Mm,
And I want to make sure that we do touch on that because
Fair. Good point.
in the I started my first company in 98. So in the X number of years that I've been doing that since,
Mhm.
started 5 companies, sold 3, run 2. I've lost more than one friend to
Hmm.
suicide.
Oh,
And they were entrepreneurs and they didn't believe they had anyone to talk to. And no matter how great we all thought they were doing, and we thought they were doing amazing,
yeah.
they didn't. And so I want to put it out there that as great as it is to do well and to get high paying clients, it's all BS if you're not putting yourself first. If you're not taking care of yourself,
Mhm.
there is absolutely no point in doing anything else. And so, and a lot of entrepreneurs and people who run their own companies, we share a lot of the same traits. ADHD aside, we share a lot of the same traits. Entrepreneurship, starting or just being the CEO of anything, we have a lot of commonalities that aren't often talked about. Everyone's like, oh, you all have drive, you all have guts. Yeah, a lot of us are also very, very addictive personalities.
Mm.
And I joke that
Yes.
I only have two speeds. I have namaste and I'll cut a
Right.
bitch. And there's no
Okay.
middle ground there. There's
Yeah.
no middle ground. And
Yeah.
we need to learn about how our brains work. And we need
Yeah.
to make sure that we're taking care of them, um,
Mm.
every single day. I have this weird, my lifestyle is I'm up at around 3:45 in the morning. And people, I mean, people have made fun of me in print. They've written, oh, look, it's Peter Shankman. He's a farmer. No, I do this because that gives me an hour or two. I'm a single dad. That gives me an hour or two to exercise and to breathe and have my first cup of coffee before I have to wake up my daughter and get her to school. And, why do I do this? I say that I do this because it keeps my brain fresh and keeps my mental attitude, but it's also because I know I'd never survive prison. And if I don't work out, I become really stabby, right? If I don't exercise and don't get those chemicals into my brain. So we all have to take care of
Right.
ourselves. And I joke about it,
Yes.
but it's
No,
ridiculously
it's
important. And we don't talk about that enough.
well, it's true. And also I want to point out something that is important to me is I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a PR person who started a business.
Exactly.
And I think the word there's so many phrases that are overused: branding, thought leadership, entrepreneurship. I started my company to support my family, and we have 5 kids. My wife doesn't have to work because my company is successful. Yes, do I want to run a $1 million company? Absolutely. Is that my primary goal? Absolutely not. But when you are, I don't, I actually unfortunately like to get up at 5:30. I just would rather do anything else. And so it doesn't happen as much as it should. But we have 5 kids. Our oldest just turned 7 in August. And so, yeah, it's super busy and we homeschool. So it's super busy all the time. Well, what's really, really important is right before this show, I went outside, I lay down on the back porch, like literally an hour and a half ago. And I said to my 4 older kids, hang out with me. And we all did some kinetic sand for 10 minutes. And I breathed. I asked everyone to not talk for a couple of minutes. I knew there was going to be a lot of talking on the show. And we just spent some time together. And I
Yeah.
think it's really important that I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. And
Yeah.
so if you're going to launch a consultancy, don't get caught up in Shark Tank. Don't get caught up in this idea that, you know, you just get caught up in what is going to bring the most value to you. And by the way, I'm a consultant too. And that sounds almost like you're putting the consultancy second. And you kind of are, because what's the goal of the consulting? If it's just to make money, well, we're all going to die eventually. So if it's just to make money, we're all going to die. It doesn't really matter.
Can't take it
But
with you.
your other value that you're bringing, that can really help when, like, this year, I've had to work a lot of 60-hour weeks. And it's been very difficult. I was up till midnight on Thursday last week writing op-eds for clients. But my goal is to have a certain outcome by my time I'm in my early 40s for my family. Go ahead, Ashley. I'm sorry. I've been riffing
No,
for a while.
no, don't apologize. I love this part of the conversation. I think we want to transition soon, but just to put an end cap on this, Peter, I love that you brought this up, and specifically that you
Mm.
mentioned mental health and suicide, which is a tough thing to talk about. But these are, I mean, real concerns for people who work independently, especially people who work independently over long
Mm.
periods of time. People become desperately lonely and they don't
Yep.
know where to turn. They don't know who to talk to. They
Mhm.
don't know who to share their struggles with. So I think it's really, really important. I mean, Peter alluded to it a little bit, having a structure built for yourself if you're an independent business owner, knowing yourself well enough to know this is the structure I need. I need to get dressed in the morning. For me, it's these things. It's making my bed in the morning. It's having a set time that I am at my desk, as if someone is holding me to a schedule. I have a
Yep.
time I need to be at my desk in the morning. I need to be dressed for work. I'm outside a lot of the day. So in between calls, I'm outside playing with my dogs. That's an important part for me, for my mental health, is getting outside, playing with my animals. You have to figure out what is going to feed your spirit, what is going to feed your mental health. Because here's the other thing we don't talk about enough. Running a business is really, really hard, is really, really hard. And it's lonely. And a lot of times there's no payoff, at least no immediate payoff for the things that we're doing every day. If you're doing outreach, if you're doing positioning, if you're doing content, you're doing marketing, a lot of these things take months before you're really going to see the returns. So you have
Right.
to be able, you have to have the mental fortitude and the well-being to be able to put in the hours day after day, week after week, face rejection, face non-response, face a lot of people saying no to you, a lot of seemingly closed doors, a lot of content that gets ignored, that gets no engagement. You have to be willing to face that every single day and keep on keeping on. And that takes taking care of yourself. So I think it's a really, really good topic to delve into.
Well, and also it's why you need to front load some of the things we're talking about. Figure out very quickly where you're standing at in the market, the value you're providing, how to show that value. Again, you could be over here saying, look how much value I provide, but if no one's paying you, you're not providing any value
So
because
true.
no one sees it and no one's willing to pay you. So you're not having any clients, you're adding no value. Sorry to be blunt.
Dustin, do we need to
So,
answer questions? I know we wanted to answer questions. I'm sorry
oh,
to interrupt you,
no,
but
you're fine. No, we've answered the one question
oh,
that's
okay,
really been asked.
okay, okay.
And I actually have a meaning to say everyone ask questions,
Oh,
but
okay.
we've been having such a fun time, I haven't actually
Just
said it.
chatting. Yeah,
So
I just
folks,
didn't
we've
want
got
to miss.
about 10 to 15 minutes left. So please throw your questions into the comments and we'll get to them very quickly. Um, but as we're going here, it's really important, I think, to front load. Like anything else, if you are going to, if you front load, who am I targeting? What's the service I'm providing? What's the, what is the thing I do?
Yeah.
Who are the people I want who will pay for the thing?
Mm.
Why will they pay for it? How do I prove to them that they should pay for it?
Mm,
And then how do I execute and develop those streamlined processes
yeah.
in the first conversation, the second conversation, after the contract is signed, and how do I deliver? If you figure that out early, you can cut out a lot of the chaff, a lot of the wasted conversations, a lot of those rejections will go away once you get all of those things done at the very beginning. And I think that requires also the ability to look and say, how long do I have before I get desperate? And I think that's where having savings is important when you start your company. That's why you should decrease your distractions, whether they are financial or non-financial. My wife and I, we keep we have a pretty streamlined budget, and that way we can invest in the company. And at the end of the year, where the profit is, we can take that out. But throughout the year, I mean, we're hiring two people, as I mentioned earlier, not because, in part because my wife and I take a very small paycheck throughout the year so we can reinvest back. So if you have vacations you're going to do as a new business owner, you may want to cancel those right now. Because sure, that's not fun today, well, it's going to be a lot better for your company to save 3 grand here, and maybe you stop going to the country club, and maybe you go out, you do coffee here at the house with your friends
Yeah.
instead of going to Starbucks.
Yeah.
Developing those practices early will allow you to have that cash flow at the beginning and reduce the stress on the business.
Well, for me, my business, in terms of like spend and in terms of revenue and how it looked, I don't know about you guys, but it was completely different in the first 2 years than it has been in the last eight. I mean, I've been an independent
Yes.
consultant for 10 years now. My first 2 years were build years. And that meant exactly like you're saying, Dustin. I lived lean. I lived far below my
Yep.
means. I squirreled away tons of money because I was afraid. I was anxious and I wanted to make sure I would have money to cover those low
Mhm.
periods. And to be able to invest in my business. I also worked a lot more hours in those first couple of
Yes.
years to build those
Yep.
foundational elements, to build that network. And
Mhm.
then, the payoff, I mentioned it before, it comes over time. It's
Yep.
cumulative. It'll start to
Yep.
come in as time passes. And so many consultants, unfortunately, they leave their full-time employment in that steady paycheck, either voluntarily or non-voluntarily. And then they oftentimes have these outlandish expectations around, hey, I'm going to put out this email or I'm going to put out this announcement and the projects are just going to roll in and things just are going to
Mhm.
happen. It takes so much time. You have to be patient. You have to put in the work, be patient, be diligent, and allow that to grow. And it does grow, it compounds, but it takes time.
One,
I would also argue that prep and prepare for changes
Mm.
uh, that you never expect. In March of 2020, I watched as 9 keynotes over the next 3 months all canceled. And I'm literally sitting there watching the call after call after call and watching all these flights I'd booked. I had a $34,000 credit on my Amex card because like I had to cancel so many flights. No one prepped for that, right? And so have that backup plan, have that money in the account for not a rainy day, but like a rainy year and a half, right?
Right.
But on the flip side of that, don't not do something because you're afraid you'll never have enough. I remember, I think it was Dear Abby or something. I read this back in the 80s. You're never going to have enough money to have a kid. So have the kid, whatever the hell she said. But it's sort of the same thing.
oh,
Right?
sure, right. You're never
Don't
going to be
not
fully
do
prepared.
something, take the risk every once in a while, but calculated risk. I'm a skydiver. And if I thought every time I jumped, I was going to die, I have over 500 jumps. If I thought every time I was going to jump, I was going to die, I wouldn't jump. I know
Yeah,
it's a calculated risk. It's worth it for me.
that's a good
So,
analogy. Taking the leap, jumping.
speaking of calculated risks, we do have a couple of questions here. And one of them is from Amber. What methods do you use for prospecting? And I think that it's less about the methods and figuring out where the sandbox is for the people you're targeting. So, for example, I went to Tyson's Corner. It was the right sandbox with the wrong people. What I have found through LinkedIn, I've spent somewhere between $30,000 and $35,000 on LinkedIn between a consultant, sales navigator, and a bunch of other things in the last 16 to 18 months, and it's generated a massive ROI. It's
Mm.
unquestioned the ROI on that. And it's why we're growing flat out as we invested 30 to 35,000 in LinkedIn, because that's where my target audience, senior agency people, senior consultants, and senior in-house people are in the comm space are hanging out.
Yeah.
So I think it's less about the method and more about your philosophy, strategy, and figuring out who's going to pay you. And then your methods will come from there once you've done that research and done that experimentation with the services and products you're providing.
If you know your ideal client well enough, you'll know. You won't have to ask that question. You'll know the
True.
spaces that they're active in because you'll be able to walk a mile in their shoes. If you're doing the deep dive
Mhm.
you should be doing into your ideal client, you should be able to honestly sit down at your desk and
Mhm.
put yourself into the body of your ideal
Yeah.
client and start to act as them, think as them, talk as
Mhm.
them. View things critically as if you're them. You can look at your content that you're going to put out. You can look at that community you were thinking of joining. You can look at that social platform and say, if you've got your VP of corporate communications hat on, because that VP of corp comms
Right.
for a Fortune 100 company is your target client, let's say, you can embody her. You can see the world through her eyes and act as if you're her, and you'll instantly be able to pinpoint where she would be, what she would be gravitating to, how she would be
Mhm.
thinking and acting.
So as an example of, go ahead, Peter.
No, no, I was gonna say I totally agree with that. And also, the more you do this, the more you're gonna realize almost immediately, right? Who is, how when you're on a first date, you get that feeling, yes or no? Same thing.
Well, and two, sometimes you're with different target audiences you didn't expect, right? Because when you go narrow at the right audience, you get business on the side you didn't expect. So my business partner is my father. His fifth business is the second one to do multiple millions of dollars a year in revenue, is a gutter cleaning company. And
Mhm.
they targeted 50 to 85-year-olds who own a home on Cape Cod. Part of the location was he lives on Cape Cod. Part of it is people on Cape Cod have more money than average. And
Yeah.
third, you target older people because they're not going to pull out a ladder and clean their own gutters. He didn't realize that property managers would be a huge target audience until year 3.
Yes,
He
they
didn't
can.
realize that installations, you get the gutter cleaning, that's a small amount of money. When the
Yeah.
person wants their gutters installed is where you make the real profit. And he didn't know that was part. And this was his fifth business, his third in the home services space. Similarly, we targeted PR agencies and in-house teams. Our first year doing it, we had some business in the agency side, and most of our business has come to, agencies. By accident, we've had business with 4 consultants who are high level former CCO type positions, and we've generated some business with those people. Now I know that that's a target audience, and that's where I'm focusing the next 6 months. And part of why I'm hosting this conversation is that I know my target audience, but because I'm targeting up here with my target audience that have money, they have need, and they understand they have the need, they need to pay money for it. That has trickled down into other audiences I didn't expect. So by
So
having
smart.
that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so smart. I mean, who has the ear of your target client? That's how I think of it, right? Who has
Right.
influence over your target client? Who has their ear? Who do they listen to? Who do
Right.
they go to? That's exactly what you're
Right.
describing.
And by doing that, I noticed the four consultants we worked with so far, without targeting that side of the industry, three of them had been in business longer than 2 years, but they all had held senior roles. So I'm targeting people who've been in business for 2 years because they have figured out their pricing model. They have figured out those other things. No offense to the new consultants. A lot of people just figure out what they need to do. And that means that person may not be able to hire us. And so just like you have to go to, instead of going for that small business, go to the larger business, we're very narrowly hitting that target audience because we have to do that advanced research and make sure that we're hitting the right people.
Dustin, I have to go in a minute, but I just want to say, maybe you guys can stick around, but I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me today. I love these conversations. I love talking to consultants, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Actually, take 10 seconds, answer Melissa's question. How does AI play a role in finding in the consultancy world?
In
Last
finding, in consulting or in finding clients or both?
the kind of question was change the client consulting matching process.
Hmm. That's interesting. I mean, everyone's different in how they're leveraging AI. I can tell you how I use it. I use AI as a thought partner. I don't use AI to produce my content. I use it to bounce ideas off of and refine ideas. So, one thing I'm loving right now is finding highly super tailored prompts that I can put into AI to help with my business development. So, I actually have one. I'll post it to LinkedIn. I love sharing this stuff. So, follow me on LinkedIn if you're not already. But this
Yes.
really super detailed prompt to turn AI into a market researcher, which ties into this conversation. And it actually, when I used it, it elicited a bunch of new, speaking of prospecting, a bunch of new places I could go to find new clients for commsconsultants.com, which is my business. And it was really helpful, but it was a super lengthy, super detailed prompt. And a lot of people are having fun creating those prompts to sort of force AI to perform as if it's fulfilling a certain role or a certain function for your business. So I'm enjoying that as sort of a way to open up new ideas for my prospecting, for my lead gen. And that's where I would probably direct people on this call to start using AI, if you're not already.
That was a lot smarter than anything I could say about AI.
I would say
Peter?
the
And actually,
same
for you and
thing.
John, go ahead.
I would say the
Okay.
same thing. Take care, Ashley. I would say the same thing. I don't use, if you're a good writer, if you're a good communicator, if you're a good business person, AI will make you better. If you're not, AI won't help you. You have to start. I had a journalism professor who once said, be brilliant at the basics. And I suggest following me on LinkedIn as well. I think it's linkedin.com/n/Peter Shankman. It's funny, I told you about this earlier. I'm throwing a conference in February in New York City, a
Yes.
one day small to mid-sized business conference. We're doing it a different way. We're inviting 12 speakers, each one speaking for 15 minutes with the goal of each one has to give you one specific tool or process that you can implement that afternoon in your own business and see a difference like within 24 hours. So it's really good. We have everything from like finance to legal to marketing to whatever. But the website is sourceofsources.com/conference. Sourceofsources.com/conference. And I think that this was great. This is a conversation we definitely need to have more. No question about it. Really
Well,
appreciate you
folks,
running it though.
Peter, this was great. And I don't know Peter until today. We had DM'd a little bit, and he was very kind to come on the show. And I want to point out that that's part of what we talk about on this program has been, don't be afraid to reach out. Like, Peter is a hero guy, the SOS guy. He's like way over here, and I'm just, guy running a 7-person company. With again,
You know what's
to just,
ironic? What's ironic is I did some dive on you as we were doing this. I did some research on you, and I'm probably going to email you because I do ironically need some help with some op-eds. So we're going to talk.
well, we're going to talk. And so here's the thing, though. You miss all the shots. I'm going to say you miss all the shots you don't take as a consultant, but make sure they're the right shots for the right people, right? I reached out to Peter because he's been a consultant. He gives advice to others. He's well known in the space, so it gives me social spread, social proof. And I got the impression that Peter enjoys talking, so perhaps he would want to talk on the show. And so if you're going, when you're, whether you're marketing your consultancy, whether you're just getting out there and talking to prospects, don't be afraid. What was it Ashley said? Be available but selective.
Exactly.
Get yourself out there as wide as possible with a select number of services that provide a value on the pain point and the solution and the process you're using. So that's what I would say is sort of the closing comments. Peter, you can have the last word.
Yeah, no, I have a friend of mine who I'm close friends with. He lives in Dubai, and he's famous for these proverbs that come out of nowhere. And one of them that he always says about working with new clients or trying to find new clients, he says, "Trust in Allah, but tie your camel." Right? And I always love that. The premise is, yes, be nice and be kind, but do your homework and make sure it's right for you.
My priest puts it this way: pray like God, work like you're in charge, pray that God's in charge.
Yep.
This is, yeah, exactly. Folks, this has been great. Throw any more questions in the comments. I will be looking through the comments over the next day, and I'll reply as I can and tag Ashley and Peter if you have specific questions for them. Peter, this was great. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Take care.